Okie dokie. Just gotta find my paper. Okay. Let's check and see if everything's fine on this end. Oops. Hello, everyone. Okay, I don't think anyone's on yet, but that's okay. Let's see. Let's just make sure it's actually live. Okay. I think we are live. Great. All right, so it has definitely been a while since I have went live, but we're gonna try to do this tonight. Okay. So this month is still August, so this month is still National Breastfeeding Month, and I think this week might be Black Breastfeeding Week. And so if you watch my channel, last year I went live every single day for Black Breastfeeding Week. This time I did not do that. I decided to do a live Q&A on breastfeeding because I did one before, like maybe 3 years ago, but that was a Facebook live and I uploaded it here to YouTube, but I did not, you know, like do it. Oh, hi, Lisette, Lara. Hi, thank you for joining the live tonight. And so, yes, so I have been wanting to do this for a while because I've never done one on here, which is crazy because, of course, I love talking about breastfeeding. All right, so just a quick introduction. My name is Tashima McRae. I am a doula, chef, and mom of 5, and I have exclusively breastfed all of my children. I am currently breastfeeding my 5th child. She will be 10 months old in a few days. And so, yeah, on this channel I just like to talk about all things motherhood, birth, pregnancy, labor and delivery, postpartum, and breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is one of those big passions of mine because I feel like it doesn't get, like, I know people know that breastfeeding is important, but I feel like it's so important, like, you know, especially like that first year of your baby's life. But there's not as much, I feel like, education about breastfeeding, the right way to breastfeed, and things like that. Sometimes it's not accessible to everyone. And so that's one of the reasons, or one of the things that I like to talk about here on my channel, especially as being a Black woman, because we have some of the lowest breastfeeding rates out there. Hi, Rami. I think I saw your comment earlier. Thank you for stopping by. And so, yeah, we're going to talk about breastfeeding tonight. I'll see how long I can go before the baby wakes up and she needs to eat. So I posted on all of my social media to get some questions in. I have some that I'm going to start with, but you're welcome. Thank you for watching. I definitely appreciate all the support on my channel and on all my other, you know, platforms. So I'm going to start with the ones that I have. And then, but if you have any questions and you weren't able to get them in, or something comes to your mind as I'm talking, shoot them in the chat. I will be able to see them and then we can talk about it. So let's start with, okay, this is a good one. This is a really good one. What advice do I give to expecting first-time moms for breastfeeding? And I love this question because I feel like it covers a lot at one time. And really, that's one of the reasons why I talk about breastfeeding so much, because I do feel like it's important. And the biggest advice that I could give, you know, a first-time mom is to get breastfeeding like classes, knowledge, education while you are pregnant. So throughout the course of your pregnancy. I just feel like once baby is born, you start running into maybe like some troubles with breastfeeding and things like that. It's going to be harder to troubleshoot in the moment. You know, if your baby's screaming and crying, or you feel like you're not producing enough, or somebody's telling you you're not producing enough, you're just going to go to, you know, you're just going to go to what you think is the easiest at the time. So it's harder. How does breastfeeding change your body? Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I'm going to come right back to that, okay? So it's harder, I feel like, in the moment to deal with any problems that you may have with breastfeeding. But if you get like a good general working knowledge of breastfeeding, you know, like how often babies should be eating, when your milk comes in, things like that. If you get that throughout your pregnancy, I think it makes it a little bit easier when you do run into, you know, if you have any issues down the road. that is definitely one of the things that I did. Now, I come from a big family. I am one of 10. And so my parents have 10 children. And I saw my mom breastfeed all of us. I'm one of the oldest. I'm the oldest girl. And so breastfeeding for me was just second nature. But when I was pregnant the first time around, I did take breastfeeding classes, and it was free. It was offered in my community, and I think it was like once a week. And I went throughout my pregnancy, and it helped a lot. I did have a lot of firsthand knowledge, of course, with my mom, being there by my side. But the breastfeeding class helped a lot, because until you're in that stage of life, you really don't know what to expect. Watching somebody breastfeed their baby is different, than you taking your baby home and breastfeeding your baby. So that is the biggest advice I have for first time moms. Get you some breastfeeding education throughout your pregnancy while there's less stress, surrounding breastfeeding. And then if you do have problems, post birth or while you're breastfeeding your baby, don't be afraid to reach out to, lactation consultants. A lot of hospitals have them already built in. And a lot of times you can get free, resources, so they can come to you. You can go to them or whatever. If you're in the hospital and you're struggling with breastfeeding, reach out to them, call them, ring their button. They're there to help you. A lot of them have hotlines as well that are like 24 hours. So don't be afraid, to just call in and get some help if you need it. Okay. All right. Let me see if I finished answering this one. Yes, that's my biggest advice for first time moms. Okay. Is there a way that I can go back to these questions on here? Let's see. Okay, I think the first question was, how does breastfeeding change your body, right? I was trying to see it over here. That would have made it so much easier for me. Okay. But how does breastfeeding change your body? That's a good question. How does it change your body? Well, it definitely changes your appetite. I know for me, I am way hungrier as a breastfeeding mom than I ever was as a as a pregnant mom. Now, I did have hyperemesis for all of my pregnancies, so that is extreme, morning sickness and nausea and throwing up. I had all of it, all 5 times. And so a lot of times I wasn't like as hungry throughout my pregnancy, even though I did need to eat like kind of often, kind of frequently, just to keep the nausea away, which sometimes it worked, most times it did not. But breastfeeding, oh my gosh, I am so hungry all the time. All the time I'm hungry, super thirsty. Yeah, I'm hungry all the time. And I always compare breastfeeding hunger to like a teenage boy. Like if you lived with teenage boys or had teenage brothers, you know how they can eat you out of house and home. That's how I feel when I am breastfeeding. And it's even worse like when baby is going through a growth spurt, 10 times the hunger. I have to go. Bye. Thank you so much, Lisette. Thank you so much. And this will be on a replay. So if you're not able to catch it live or stay for the whole live duration, that's okay. After it's, I end it, it will be re-uploaded. So you can always watch it. But yes, thank you for stopping by. And okay, so that's one way that breastfeeding, kind of affects your body. What's another way? Well, while you're breastfeeding, of course, postpartum, your hormones, they're doing a whole bunch of different wonky things, because now your hormones have to go from sustaining a pregnancy to breastfeeding mode if you decide to breastfeed or you are breastfeeding. And so your hormones are still not normal, even though you delivered your baby, because it takes a different set of hormones to maintain that breast milk supply. So you may still feel like, emotional. You may still have all of those pregnancy hormones as far as like emotions and things like that. So keep that in mind. Another one is sleep. If you are breastfeeding a baby and you're not using bottles or anything like that, even if you're pumping, it's going to affect your sleep, because breastfed babies eat so often. And a good, rule of thumb or a good guideline is 8 to 12 times within a 24-hour period. And so that's really often, like every 2 to 3 hours. And we as adults, we're not used to sleeping on a sleep cycle like that. And so it does lead to sleep deprivation in the beginning. When they start sleeping for a little bit longer at night, it gets a little bit easier, but it really does depend on your baby and how often your baby wants to eat. And I am pro feeding on demand. So whenever baby needs to eat, that's when I believe you should be putting your baby to breast, because it's the best way to build your supply, maintain your supply, and keep it to wherever your baby needs it to be. So that means, feeding them whenever they want. Sometimes Sometimes they want a full meal. Sometimes they're just thirsty. Sometimes they just want a snack or dessert. Or sometimes they just want to be close to you. Sometimes they are in pain. Sometimes they just need help, like falling asleep or whatever. So there's so many reasons why babies breastfeed. And that's why I'm just all for letting baby lead. And you'll never have supply issues if you allow your baby to lead, your breastfeeding journey for the most part. Outside of like, a baby sleeping too long. If it's a premature baby or a sickly baby, they may not wake up when they are supposed to be eating. And so that's when you as mom have to kind of wake them up, just to make sure that they're eating regularly. But yeah, so that's another thing is sleep. It will affect your sleep. How do you feel about using a pump? I will come back to that one, sister. Oh, I don't know how to say that one. You know what? I wonder if I can. Oh, okay, I can see it. I will come back to that one, sister. R. Kelly Stevens. I don't know if I said it right, but that's a pretty name. um, and one more thing I want to say about breastfeeding. So a lot of times, right, we hear that breastfeeding helps you to lose that extra baby weight, those extra pounds, everything you gained during pregnancy, yada, yada, yada. Okay, for some women it does, because keep in mind, breastfeeding takes a lot from mom. It takes a lot of calories to maintain your supply, right? And it takes a lot for you to produce, what your baby needs. So about 500 calories a day. Oh, that's another good question. All these questions coming in. Okay, I will try to remember that one. Doesn't make your breast sag. I actually have a video, a short, on that one, but I will go over that briefly. So long story short, for me, breastfeeding does not allow me to lose weight while I'm breastfeeding. And for my first two children, it really bothered me because a lot of women, of course, said that breastfeeding helped them lose weight. And so I was just thinking there was something wrong with me. I started, trying to cut my calories and exercising a whole bunch. And what I noticed for me is that it would decrease my supply. And so I had to really like scale back, just eat normally, eat when I was hungry, obviously drink when I was thirsty, and just keep my exercise real minimal, like only like walking. If I did anything outside of that or too stressful for my body, it would decrease my supply. And so for me, I don't lose weight while I'm breastfeeding. I don't lose any weight while I'm breastfeeding, and sometimes I gain weight, and that's what's normal for me. But again, once you're done breastfeeding, you wean your baby, your hormones balance out, and you will be able to lose weight normally again if you're the same as me. But if you're not, you may lose weight quite quickly while you're breastfeeding. Some women are on the whole other side of things where they can't keep weight on, and that's when you really have to boost your calories. Make sure you're taking in enough calories throughout the day while you're breastfeeding, because it does take a lot from you as mom. Okay, so those are just some ways that breastfeeding changes your body. The next one was, will our bodies make more milk as we progress through postpartum? Yes. All right, let's just start with when your baby is born. When a placenta is detached, that is when your body gets that signal. That is when your breast gets that signal to start producing milk. While you're pregnant, throughout your second trimester and your third trimester, your body is already starting to produce colostrum. Okay, very good question. Also, let me see that name again. Camellia Israel. All right, I will definitely come back to your questions, okay? Okay, so yes, once your baby's born, the placenta is detached and released. That's when your body is on go milk mode, okay? Where was I going with that? Okay, right. But so in the early days, the first 2 to 3 days, you're only producing colostrum at that point, and that is more than enough for your baby. So please don't allow someone to tell you or make you think you're not making enough milk for your baby. As the days go on, maybe like day 3, day 5, that is when your transitional milk will start to change over to mature milk, right? And so that's why I always say the best way to do it is to feed on demand, because your baby will tell your body how much milk to make. As your baby gets bigger, your body will make more milk for them because they're able to take in, more milk at a time. And a lot of times they get more effective at taking the milk out. So as newborns, they may want to be on there for a while. They may need to be on there for a while. But as they get older and older and older, they're usually not on there too long. My baby is almost 10 months old now. She can get done nursing within about 5 to 10 minutes and be good, but she's more effective at getting the milk out. I definitely noticed that I produce more now because, one, she's bigger, she's older, she's heavier, and she usually does eat from both breasts now. But in the beginning, she only needed about one breast for a session. So yes, your body will make more milk. Again, when you put your baby to your breast, they're the ones who will be guiding your body how much to make. And that's why it's good to just put them to breast as often as possible so that you will always have enough for your baby. So yes, you will make more milk postpartum. The older your baby gets, the more that they need, but they will be your perfect guide. How do you feel about using a pump? Not against it. I'm not against it. What I am against is using it in place of breastfeeding it. In place of breastfeeding, so putting your baby directly to your breast, or using it in cases where you don't have to. Now, I know some families are different, right? For me, for my first, I did have to pump because she was a preemie baby. She had to stay in the NICU after I was cleared to go home. And she had, she was there for a while. She was there for 7 weeks. And so when I wasn't with her, I did have to pump just to keep up my supply, pumping as often as she would be eating. So that is my advice. If you are pumping, you need to be pumping every time that baby would be eating. And so I think pumping is good for women who are outside the home, who may have to work, who are away from their babies for like extended periods of time. But if you're in the home, I really don't recommend it. I don't recommend it because it's harder to maintain a supply using a pump. Now for me, I stayed with my baby when she was in the NICU pretty much all day long. I was there from like sun up to sundown. Just because I needed to be with her. Like that was the best way for me to like get over that whole traumatic situation and whatnot. But again, when she came home, I got rid of the pump. It really didn't work for us. I didn't like the pumping in the bottles, cleaning the parts. It was just a lot of extra work for me. It was a lot of extra work. And so I haven't used the pump with my other children. And I do think that is what has helped me to be able to successfully, exclusively breastfeed all of them without ever using formula. I'm just reading this last question that came in. Hey, Yana. Okay, I'll get right to it. I'm trying to go in order. So yes, pump if you need to. Pump if you need to. If you're gonna be away from your baby for extended periods of time. And again, you should be pumping every time that baby will eat. So if you're gone from your baby, 8 hours, you're working an 8-hour shift, you really still should be pumping every 2 to 3 hours to kind of keep up with whatever they will be eating or however they will be eating if they weren't home with you. Now, some people like to pump to, allow dad to feed the baby or allow others to feed the baby. I do feel like that should be, if you're going to do that, like an occasional thing, because again, I don't know, maybe it's a personal choice, because I feel like for me, if I have to pump, if I have to wake up to pump, to keep up with my supply, to put something in a bottle, to put it in the refrigerator or the freezer, to take it out, to thaw it out after it's frozen, I feel like it was a lot. It was so much when I had to do that, and I was like, it's way easier for me to just pull it out, put it in the baby's mouth, and put it back when they're done. So it was less stress that way for me. But do what works best for you and your family. Just realize, though, that a pump cannot do what a baby can do. So, yes, it can extract milk from your breast. But when you put your baby to breast, your saliva mixes in, their saliva mixes in with your breast glands and everything, and tells your body in real time what kind of milk to make. So how many calories, how fatty it needs to be, how thirsty or dehydrated your baby is, if your baby's about to get sick, what antibodies the baby needs at that time. And then also, your milk is different in the morning than it is at night. And so a lot of those things you don't get when you use the pump. And so I'm just all for putting your baby to breast as much as possible. Does breastfeeding make your breast sag? No, it does not. What makes your breast sag is age and genetics, right? There's a lot of women who have saggy breasts who have never breastfed their baby. It does not matter. And honestly, there's so many benefits to breastfeeding, like beyond, childbearing age. So even if you're breastfeeding your children and things like that, when you get older, it lowers your risk of certain cancers and diseases and illnesses and things like that. And so I think it's actually a more of a benefit to breastfeed. I think it gives your breast good muscle tone and things like that. So no, breastfeeding does not cause your breasts to sag. It's really just the luck of the draw. And there are definitely exercises and things like you can do to get them back up to where you need them to be. But I do have a short on that where I talk a little bit more about that. But that's one of those myths out there. Do you drink anything every time you feed your baby or after? I try to drink water every time I breastfeed my baby, or like right before or right after. And this is actually a tip that my mom gave me that I saw through my own eyes, like work, like how beneficial it was. It was so crazy. So I'll never forget, I'm pumping, in my room after my baby was born. Again, I had a very traumatic first birth and pregnancy and whatever. And I'm pumping, and I really didn't know what to expect with the pump and all that. Obviously, it's my first time using it, but my mom was sitting there, and she was just watching me, and she was like, drink your water every time you pump, and that will help with your breast milk supply. And so I tried it. Like, I took a sip of water, and I'm telling you, almost instantly, I started pumping more milk. It was insane. It was kind of crazy. And I was like, this has to be a fluke. So, I waited and did it again, and it was the same results. I started to actually produce more milk or get out more milk through the pump when I drank water. And so, yes, definitely make sure you keep up your hydration as a breastfeeding mom. It will definitely help your supply. And if you're dehydrated, it can, decrease your supply. So I always try to drink when I'm breastfeeding my baby. And I also am a snacker. Like, I feel like I need snacks. And there are some snacks that are just like my favorite, like, some nuts, a handful of nuts. I love protein bars. I feel like that's a good, nice, quick, easy snack. So I eat probably 3 meals a day and 2 snacks. And I feel like that helps me to keep my calories up enough to where they need to be. Let's see. Did I miss anyone? Okay. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, how can moms know that if a baby is getting milk from the breast or not? Like, how do they know when nothing is coming out? It feels different, I suppose. Yes. Okay, so in the beginning, when your milk starts to come in, you should notice a difference. Like, your breast will feel heavy. And for me, I'm an overproducer, so mine kind of go like into overdrive. Like, when I give birth, my boobs are like, once I put the baby on, I pretty much, not so much the first time because that's my first baby, but for my others, I pretty much had the milk there. And again, I had all my children back to back. So usually throughout my pregnancy, I was still breastfeeding. And so even though the ones that I stopped breastfeeding a few months before the baby was born, I don't feel like my milk completely dried up anyway. And so it was already there. Anyway, all that to say is that when it comes in, like that first time, it will feel really heavy. You may have some lumps, and the lumps is just like the milk accumulating. And that is, again, another reason why it's good to put your baby to your breast, because your baby is more efficient at getting milk out the breast than a pump. So again, a pump can extract milk out the breast, but your baby can really, really get the milk out the breast. They can get more out of your breast. So if you are pumping, don't be discouraged by what you see. Just know that your baby can get more. They always can get more, and your breasts are never empty, okay? So yes, it will feel full and heavy. For me, my body does that while it's trying to figure out basically how many babies there is and how much milk to make. And so it's very uncomfortable for me in the beginning until it starts to mellow out. And that takes about, for me, it takes about maybe 2 weeks or so, where I'm just like, every time my baby gets on, they are squirting out. Sometimes I feel so bad because they're like choking, and I'm like, I don't know. I have a really fast letdown reflex as well. So if you're breastfeeding a mom and your baby seems to struggle a little bit when you put them on, just take them off and let them kind of like adjust, and then put them back on. But yeah, that does take a while until it settles out. Now, when it settles out and you're not feeling as heavy and as full later on, don't think you're not producing enough milk. It's just your body has gotten accustomed to what your baby needs, and it won't always feel like that. The only times it will feel like heavy like that is if you miss a feeding, your baby starts sleeping through the night. In that case, you'll wake up feeling probably engorged. Or, you know, if you're away from your baby for a long time and it is time for you to pump or feed your baby, you will notice that it will feel really quite full. But it will balance out. It will balance out after a while. How to know that your baby is getting enough milk is the best way is to check their output. So they should be having, you know, regular wet and poopy diapers throughout the day. Most breastfed babies will poop like once a day, especially when they're little, like that newborn stage. My baby now, she doesn't really poop every single day, but it's almost every day. I would say like 5 days a week. But when they're really, really little, they're going to poop a lot to get that meconium out, and they're going to poop just to show that they're getting that hydration in. But wet and poopy diapers, you want to be seeing at least, you know, 5 to 6 to 8 a day. Their skin should look nice, you know, and clear and supple and everything like that. Your baby may have baby acne in the beginning. That's just a hormonal thing. Don't be scared by that. It will go away on its own. You don't need to do anything about the baby acne. But once the baby acne goes away, their skin should be nice and, you know, nice and beautiful. It shouldn't look dry. It shouldn't look yellow. And their eyes should be nice and clear. Another good sign is their mood, your baby's mood. So is your baby happy? Does your baby seem content after they have eaten? Or are they like fussy? Do they seem fussy in between feedings? Do they seem fussy during the feeding? Are they, you know, latching on and off the breast? Those are some signs that maybe you're not making enough, or that the baby's not getting full enough to be content. And so that is causing some, you know, disruption there. So yes, it does feel different. And if your boobs are full, so say like, you know, it's time to feed your baby and they feel full. Once your baby eats, in the beginning, my letdown is like I can feel it, like a little tingling feeling. Now I don't feel it as much as often, but I do also pay attention to my baby's like sucking patterns. So I can hear her suckling, and I can tell when she's like getting the milk to come down, and when she has it down, it's like long, drawn out, like sucking pattern, sucking motion that you will hear once the baby has gotten the milk down. And is there anything else? And then yes, after a successful feeding, sometimes I don't know if this is TMI, but just give it a little shake. A little shake afterwards. If it feels like nice and floppy, you know your baby got, you know, enough. And also feel your baby's tummy. Like if you started the feeding out and their stomach was, you know, just a little flat, but afterwards it's got that little nice hump. That's what you want to see, for a good properly fed breastfed baby. And again, checking their contentment, because if they fall asleep at the breast, that's usually a good sign. If you feel like they got enough. Now, some newborns, they may fall asleep a little too early. You may have to encourage them and wake them up, just to finish the feeding to make sure that they got enough. But if your baby's older and fall asleep at the breast, it's usually a good sign that they got enough and that they're happy and content. Let's see, did I have any more questions on here? Yeah, pumping is a lot of work. I have 5 pumps, but Motif Luna is my favorite, but it does not empty my boobs. How can I empty before the next session? Well, why do you want to empty before the next session? Again, your baby is going to be best at getting that milk out your breast. So if you are pumping, I recommend that you breastfeed your baby first and then pump afterwards. I wouldn't really pump before, because then the pump, or you know, the milk that you're getting in the pump it's gonna have all that really, really good stuff, and then your baby is kind of getting like the leftover milk. So I would allow baby to eat first and then allow the pump. The baby didn't get everything out, then maybe the pump can do that. But again, your baby's more effective at getting it. So if you're trying to like pump to build up a supply for when you're not there, I still would do it after baby eats, not before. Oh, okay. So here's the one that I got. Did the IUD kill my supply? And I think she had Marina. Oh, I do see your question. Okay, I'll answer that one next. And yes, so that lady asked that. She said, you know, she had a really good supply before she got the IUD inserted, and then afterwards it pretty much tanked. She said she was an overproducer. Now, what that is a what is it called? Birth control. Oh, is this coming up clear? Okay. So Marina is birth control. Now with birth control, the thing is if it's hormonal, it can affect your breastfeeding relationship or your breastfeeding supply. Now a lot of them say that it won't affect it, and there's few, you know, women that it does affect. But I just feel like anything hormonal can mess it up because you need certain hormones like prolactin to make your breast milk. And a lot of times if something is decreasing like your fertility in a way, that can also decrease your breast milk supply. So I would be careful with any kind of hormonal birth control. And this one is an IUD, so that's an intrauterine device. So the copper one, that is pretty much the only one I think that is not a hormonal birth control. That's just something that gets placed in your cervix and then, or your fallopian tubes. I forget exactly where, but it keeps, you know, a pregnancy from happening because sperm is repelled by copper. But this one, this Marina, is supposed to give a low dose of the hormone. I forget which one it is, so forgive me for that. But it can affect, and some women have said that it did affect them. Now, some said that it only affected them for a certain period of time. So it was like a few days or whatever, or a week or so, and then their supply went back to normal. If you do have one of these, and you feel like it's affecting your supply, maybe you can power pump in addition to breastfeeding your baby, or, you know, breastfeed your baby a little bit more, see if that comes back up for you. But if it doesn't, some women recommend just, you know, taking it out and using another form of birth control. That's what I would do if I was on it. But yeah, it says it doesn't for most women, but it can affect it. So I would start with that. It's probably, you know, it could just be like a one-time thing, or it could be the IUD causing the milk supply issues. In that case, I would probably use something else. Um, do I use a Haka? No, I do not. I did have one gifted to me for my third pregnancy and birth. And I thought about using it, but I am just, I don't know. I wasn't sure how to use it exactly. Like, I think you put it on one of your boobs and then like your other boob that you're breastfeeding from, and it collects milk, but without having, you know, to pump or whatever. But then I was like, but what would I do with the milk? Because I always put my babies to breast anyway. And so I didn't want to waste it or anything like that. So I didn't use it. I haven't used it, and I just put them to breast. I just put my babies to breast, except for my first. What are things that you can't eat while breastfeeding? Oh, that's a good one. I'm not so much of a stickler for saying you can't eat certain things. Okay, I do know that certain foods, right, cross the barrier between mom and baby while you're breastfeeding. Um, but as far as like that you can't eat, I wouldn't say any food. I mean, obviously, if you're breastfeeding, I wouldn't be smoking, I wouldn't be drinking, or like anything like that on that side. But I'm not so sure if there's foods you shouldn't eat. I think there's you do want to be mindful of like your caffeine. So if you're somebody that drinks coffee like I do, or you know, you like having soda every now and again, the same rules that apply for pregnancy are pretty much the same rules that apply for breastfeeding. So you want to stay 300 milligrams or lower. Some people even say 200 milligrams. And so I will have like a cup of coffee in the morning, and I try to keep it at that. If I need an extra boost, I'll have, you know, like an iced coffee in the afternoon, but I try not to go over that. And then again, keep in mind, soda has caffeine, chocolate has caffeine, and teas, black tea, green tea, and things like that. Oh, and those refreshers from the store, because I don't know if a lot of people know that, but some of those refreshers have more caffeine in it than coffee. So coffee is a safer choice. But yeah, some of those refreshers from Starbucks, Wawa, Dunkin' Donuts have a lot of caffeine. So just be mindful of that. But that's really the only thing. Another one is, oh, I just saw this, pertaining to seafood, mercury. So anything that has a lot of mercury, not that you can't have mercury at all, but certain foods have a lot of mercury, and mercury can mess up your brain and things like that. So like swordfish, certain tunas, have high mercury. So I wouldn't eat like as much of it, or like not every day, something like that. But once or twice a week should be fine. Oh, let me see the next one. So yeah, I think those are the only things to kind of be mindful of. Obviously, no harmful things, no drugs, alcohol, anything like that. Can I eat spicy food? You can. You can eat spicy food if you like spicy food. I am I am not a fan of spicy food, so I will leave that to you ladies. But try to pay attention to how your baby responds when you eat certain foods. I know for me, certain foods make my babies really gassy. Really gassy, or have like runny poop. So one of them obviously is cabbage. That can make them really gassy. And lentils. I love lentils, but I do notice that when I eat lentils, it goes right through my baby. So be mindful of that. Now, if you're eating spicy food and you see that your baby maybe is having an upset stomach, or like, spitting up milk, or having like really runny poop or loose poop or stool, you may want to scale it back a little bit. Not that you can't eat it, but if it's bothering your baby, so much in a way that is disrupting them or their sleep or anything like that, I probably would, refrain from eating it or eating so much of it. Okay, make sure I got all the questions. Okay, so we talked about the IUD. Okay, here's another one. What does breastfeeding feel like? I got this one on one of my breastfeeding videos. And breastfeeding. So breastfeeding feels like an extreme, not extreme. It feels like a really, like, suction. It feels like a good suction. Like, once you're breastfeeding, you'll be able to tell like when your baby's on there and eating because they're hungry, or versus, eating just for comfort or whatever. You'll be able to tell. But you want to make sure that your baby has a good latch when you're breastfeeding. So you want to make sure that their whole entire mouth and tongue is on your nipple and your areola. So the areola is the dark part of the breast. You want to make sure that they're on both, not just the nipple, because if they're on the nipple, that will hurt. That will lead to cracked breasts, bleeding breasts, and things like that. You do not want that. Now, if your baby has a lip tie or a tongue tie, they may not be able to get a close and effective latch. And so that's just something you want to watch for, because breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. Oh, okay, I saw that last question. I will talk about that. So breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. And I want to say shouldn't. I want to put that in quotation marks, because there are a lot of reasons why breastfeeding could hurt. So for me, my fourth time breastfeeding, that baby hurt. And it is because he has a slight tongue tie. So it wasn't like super, super bad where I wasn't able to breastfeed him and he get milk effectively, but I did notice it. And that's why it hurt. Now, even outside of that, and his mouth was small. So I have, big boobs, big nipples, or whatever. And it just took a lot of work and effort for him to get his mouth completely on there in order to breastfeed. Also, I had a C-section with him. And so my body, the whole entire body, was just in a lot of pain. I felt like from my head to my toes. And so every time he latched, it was just like I kind of had to brace myself. It hurt so bad. And again, he did have a little bit of a tongue tie. And so if it's like really close to you, if it's like a few days postpartum and it's hurting for you, and your baby, has a really good latch, it may just hurt because your body may be in pain, or your birth may have been traumatic and your brain is processing that trauma as pain to your body. So it shouldn't hurt, if your baby's on there properly. But if it does hurt and you're getting pain throughout like your whole entire breastfeeding journey, you may want to have your baby checked for a lip tie or a tongue tie. Doctors, your pediatrician can release it in the office. If they catch it in the hospital in time, you can have it released. Some people are for it, some people are against it. And so I don't want to say you should do it, but some people, when they have their ties released, they notice that breastfeeding is a lot less painful for them. So outside of a lip tie or tongue tie, and you like not having any problems postpartum due to your birth or whatever, breastfeeding shouldn't hurt. And if your baby's on there correctly, it will be like a strong suction feeling, but it shouldn't hurt. And in the beginning, when they're like drawing the milk down, they will have like really fast and short sucks. Like it will be like fast. But once the milk is down, it will draw out to be like longer and deeper sucks. Okay. So that's what breastfeeding feels like to me. It feels like a suction, almost like kind of like I don't know, like a vacuum cleaner hose. Like if you ever taken that off to vacuum clean in a crevice or something like that. Like it kind of feels like that sensation. But it doesn't hurt per se. It doesn't hurt. So yes, that's what breastfeeding feels like for me. All right, the next one. How long did you breastfeed before weaning? It has been different for all the children so far. For my first, I breastfed, I think 16 months, 16 to 18 months, because I was pregnant and I wanted a break before the next baby was born. For Matthias, I breastfed for a year. Again, because I was pregnant and I wanted a break before the next baby was born. When the next baby came, I breastfed him for a year because I was ready to be done breastfeeding. And I originally, before I had my kids, I wanted to do at least 2 years with all of them. But so far, I have not been able to make it to that 2 year mark. And so I stopped breastfeeding him, my third, because I assumed he was my last. And I was like, I'm ready to get this weight off. And I knew I couldn't do it while I was breastfeeding. And I stopped at 1 year with him. For my fourth, I breastfed for 15 months, again, because I was pregnant and I wanted a break. But I would have went longer with him because I thought he was my last child, and I just really want to soak in all of the breastfeeding. And I was like, as long as he's gonna be my last one, I'll breastfeed him to 2 years. But that didn't happen, and now I'm not so sure. I'm almost to the 1 year mark in October. So we'll see how long I breastfeed, but I always make it a point to do at least that whole first year. Um, did you get his tongue tie clipped? If you don't mind answering. My second son has a slight tongue tie that's not really affected my breastfeeding journey. So I'm wondering if it's necessary. No, Nikisha, I did not. And thank you for stopping by. And congratulations on your new baby boy. No, I did not. I did not get it clipped because I did my research, and I don't know. I wasn't comfortable with it, and I kind of knew that once he got bigger, that breastfeeding would probably be easier for him, and I was right. After a while, the pain went away. Maybe like 2 months postpartum. To where every time he got one, it wasn't hurting, like excruciating pain anymore. So no, I didn't get it clipped, and I hope I don't regret that down the road, because I know some people say that it can affect their speech and orally, their teeth coming in and things like that. I don't know. To me, it didn't seem as big a deal to get it clipped because I knew he was gaining weight. I knew I had enough milk for him. Like, it didn't affect my supply. It didn't affect our breastfeeding journey. And so I chose not to get it clipped. It wasn't like as big of a deal or as extreme to me in order to warrant him getting it clipped. So I left it. My baby is super fussy during breastfeeding and moves his arms so much that he rubs against your boobs and it hurts. What would you suggest? Is your baby fussy the whole entire time that you're breastfeeding? Because I know some babies, especially like if you don't like breastfeed them right away, or if they're really, really hungry, sometimes they get frustrated waiting for the milk to come down. And so they may be fussy, fighting you, doing all of this stuff while they're waiting for the milk to come down. Like, they're sucking, but they're still mad about it. And then once it does come down, then they'll mellow out. So let me know if your baby is fussy the whole entire time. But that usually is the cause. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So yeah, just see if that's the case. Now, if he's fussy the whole entire time, maybe. Oh, okay, I'll answer that one next. Maybe he is, I don't know, it could be something you ate that he maybe doesn't like, or he may need more milk. So just put him on the other breast if he seems like he's fussy throughout the whole feeding. Just make sure that he's getting enough, because a lot of times temperament or at least while you're breastfeeding. The temperament is because either they're not getting enough, or they're too full, or something else is going on, like an earache, or they're in some kind of pain, a tooth is coming in, something like that. So if it's ongoing, I would have that checked out. But if he mellows out, like once the milk comes down, it's probably just because he didn't want to wait for the milk to come down, or you may have a slower like let down, and he just gotta get it down first. And some babies don't like working for it. And so again, that's another reason why pumping and breastfeeding, you have to be careful with it, because when you're bottle feeding, it's easier for them to get the milk through the bottle. But they really have to work for it to get it from the breast, and some babies may prefer one over the other. Um, Also, have you ever dealt with reflux? For your baby, I haven't personally, but I know some moms have, and I think, yeah, I know some moms have. And for reflux, I would just say once you feed your baby, or once your baby's done breastfeeding, maybe leave him upright for a little bit to allow the milk to go down and be settled. And you may want to you may want to burp him. Some babies, like if you're breastfeeding from the breast, you don't have to burp your baby. That's more so if you're like bottle feeding, and they're taking in a little bit extra air, so you want to make sure you burp them so they get that extra air out. But if you're breastfeeding, you don't have to, but your baby may prefer it. So I recommend just burping your baby every so often. Whenever they take a break, from breastfeeding, just sit them up a little bit, burp them, and then lay them back down and breastfeed. And then once you're done, maybe try to keep them upright about like 10 to 15 minutes after eating. That should help with the reflux. I know, like back in the NICU, for babies that had it, they had them sleeping elevated. Now, they don't really say that's safe at home. I'm trying to think. I don't know what your baby, where your baby's sleeping, what he is sleeping in, but some like bassinets have like this little pillow or something that you can put underneath the mattress so that they're elevated a little bit while they sleep, and that's supposed to help. But again, I don't know too much about that, and some people may say that's not safe or whatever, but a lot of times that's what they did for the babies in the NICU. The ones who just, were struggling after they ate, they would have them sleep a little bit elevated, um, in their bassinets. So let's see. I think that's all the questions I had. Does anyone else have any more questions? Let me just go back and double check. Um, And also, if you have like tender nipples or cracked nipples, I know some people use like the cream, but you can always squirt a little bit of your own breast milk out and just rub it around the area. That should help if you have any cracked or bleeding nipples or anything like that. He seems fussy part of the time. So if it's not the whole entire time, it's probably the letdown. He's just so hungry and starved that he's like, if this milk don't hurry up and come down, and then he's fighting you. I have definitely seen this in action. And so just maybe, I have a short that I did on early feeding cues for your baby. So you really want to get to your baby and breastfeed them before they're showing like signs of hunger per se. So before they get to rooting, before they get to like being super fussy. Because if your baby is worked up, it's going to be that much harder to get them to calm down so that you can breastfeed them. And if they're worked up like hysterical, and this has definitely happened to me, I admit that, it's gonna be so hard. Oh my gosh. And sometimes my baby now, if I don't get to her fast enough, she's a mess, and I have to calm her down before I can even get her to eat. So you really want to be like paying attention to your baby. If your baby has just woken up after a long nap or whatever, breastfeed your baby. If your baby is say like alert, but like looking around, maybe looking around for you if you're not holding them at that moment, and it's been like 2 hours or 3 hours since they ate, breastfeed your baby. If your baby's rooting, so like putting their hands to their mouth, smacking their lips, if they are looking for the breast, whether you're holding them or someone else, put your baby to breast. So we really want to try to catch our babies before they get to those later signs of hunger, because it's just going to be so much harder to breastfeed them at that point. Um, let's see, anything else? Oh yes, put your breast milk on your nipples. Breast pads, if you have breast pads, you may not always need breast pads. I feel like that's more important for like when you first start breastfeeding, so like the first 6 to 8 weeks or so. That's how long it takes your breast milk supply to regulate. And that is the most important, the most critical part of your breastfeeding journey, is from when your baby's born to that first 2 months or so. That is really going to set you up for success. I'm not saying you can't come back from that if you have some setbacks during that time, and you're dealing with milk production problems. But if you breastfeed your baby, consistently through that time, you should be okay. And in that period, like, definitely wear your nursing pads. You will notice that your breast will start to leak, like when your baby's hungry. Even if you're not around your baby, your breast will start to leak when they're hungry, when they start crying. If you're somewhere like out in public and another baby starts crying, your breast may leak at that time too. So just keep your nursing pads on you. I feel like for me, those first few weeks postpartum in the bed, I just have to keep my bra on, keep my pads on, because it's gonna come out like when you're sleeping or whatever. And so you don't want to mess up all your clothes and everything. So keep your breast pads. I had some that were like rewashable or like reusable, and so when they were done, when they were dirty, I just put them in a little mesh bag and washed them. But you can use disposable ones also. Um, let's see, is there anything else? Let's see if I got all the questions. Okay. Ooh, yeah, I do have a video about weaning. I have a video about how to tell if your baby's getting enough breast milk. I have a lot of breastfeeding videos, so check out my breastfeeding playlist that I have. Keeping him upright. Oh, let me just read. Okay, I was wondering, because I'm dealing with reflux right now. Wondering if keeping him upright for that long was actually needed. The pill hack is really, yes, yes. I would say so. Yes, keep him upright so that the milk can settle down and hopefully not come back up and not spit up and all this stuff, or they vomit and then you gotta start the whole process over again. It should help with the reflux. Also, if your baby is, you can do it while they're awake or while they're asleep, but just laying them down, flat on your lap, um, on their stomach, and just gently massaging their back like that. I feel like that helps also as well. But sometimes they just need help getting that extra like gas and stuff out. And I wouldn't do that on a full stomach. Please don't put them down on a full stomach. But maybe like in between feedings, if you want to try that, maybe that will help his body to get those digestive juices going and everything like that. As a breastfeeding mom, make sure you drink your water, eating enough calories, keeping your stress levels down. No one hardly talks about this, but stress can negatively affect your breastfeeding supply. Negatively. And so, just because the mind body connection is so powerful, it's so strong, especially when it comes to breastfeeding and pregnancy and everything like that. So try to keep your stress down. Do those things that you need to do for self-care for yourself. So that will help you on your breastfeeding journey as well. Like if you feel like you're eating really good, you're drinking all your water, you're putting your baby to breast as often all the time as you can, you still feel like something's off, like the milk's not there, you're not producing enough, maybe check your stress levels. That could be what's throwing you off. And then sleep as well. I am a big proponent of sleeping when a baby sleeps. And I know I get some flack from people. It's usually like younger moms who are like, oh, I can't sleep while the baby's sleeping. I have to do this. I have to do this. I'm trying to tell you, they're only this small for such a short period of time. And if you are sleep deprived, it's going to make everything harder. It's going to make keeping up with feeding them around the clock harder, dealing with your other kids harder, whatever you have to do for yourself. So I recommend sleeping when they sleep, especially if you have someone there that can watch over you or your baby while you're sleeping, anything like that. Definitely make sure you're getting your rest. That will affect your supply also. Does baby still cluster feed as they get older? If so, how do you handle that? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Babies usually go in spurts, and I think it's like 3, 6, 9. No, it's 3 months. No, the first month, the second month, the third month, all of those are cluster feeding times. And so in the beginning, they're cluster feeding, like right if you're, in the hospital, you just deliver your baby, they are definitely cluster feeding because first they have to bring the milk in, right? And after that kind of settles out a little bit, but then they go into that next or that first growth spurt and they're cluster feeding. For me, my kids usually cluster fed, I want to say like the first 2 weeks or so, and then like that next month and a half. It usually was like from 7 p.m. to 10 or 11 p.m., where it seemed they wanted to eat every single 30 minutes or so, like without fail. And I know it's exhausting, I know it's a lot, but their bodies are trying to go through that growth spurt, and so they need those extra calories from you for their bodies to do that. And so yeah, it's usually in groups of threes. So like every 3 months or so, they will go through a growth spurt. And so my baby now is going through a growth spurt because I noticed my appetite has increased, and she is definitely getting bigger, and she's about to be one. So yes, it does still happen throughout. It, it can taper off, but whenever they need to eat, just try your best. Try your best to keep up your snacks, your water, and everything like that. Anything else about, oh, and don't be discouraged by custard feeding either, especially in the beginning, because I know some moms may feel like, oh, I'm not making enough because my baby's always hungry. That's not the case. They are trying to bring in more milk that they need for like growth, for like developmental milestones, physical milestones. They need that extra. If whenever your baby's about to go into like the next stage of life, so say when they start to eat solids, that's something big for them. They will eat a little bit more. When they are about to start crawling, they're going to want to eat a little bit more. When they start walking, they're going to want to eat a little bit more. And even when they start becoming vocal and can say like mama and dad and things like that, they need extra calories for all of that. So cluster feeding definitely comes definitely comes in groups, and it does still happen. It kind of tapers off, I feel like, after one it kind of slows down, but that first year is really so important and so key for babies and breastfeeding moms. Okay, so I think that's it. Unless there's any more questions, I really appreciate you all coming by to spend the night with me and chat about breastfeeding. Again, I am a doula. I'm a breastfeeding counselor. And it is my goal to get as many moms breastfeeding as possible and for as long as possible. As long as mom feels comfortable, breastfeeding, as long as baby feels comfortable breastfeeding. So that's what I'm all about on this channel. What age do you recommend inducing puree? 6 months. 6 months is the recommendation. That is like the general recommendation for pediatricians. I know some of them, like for my second, he recommended starting at 4 months, and I took his word for it. It did not go well. My baby was not ready at 4 months, and so I did end up waiting the 6 months. But I am a stickler for that because when your baby is born, their digestive tract is not closed, like like an older child, like an adult. And so their what they eat can go down to their stomach. I think that's how it is. Like, it's not a closed area, and so it can be dangerous for them to have solid food before that 6 month period. That's usually when it closes up. Oh, thank you, Nikisha. I really appreciate you coming by. You're welcome. Um, so yes, I'm a stickler for the 6 months. I wait 6 months. I waited 6 months with all my kids besides one. And even for my fourth child, he was not ready at 6 months. So again, you want to take into consideration your child's age and their signs of readiness. He When I started with him, even though he was 6 months, he gagged every single time. Like, I tried to put a spoon in his mouth, or he tasted something, and then he would like vomit. And he wasn't really good with solids until about like 8 to 9 months. So you just want to keep an eye on that. If your baby seems like they're not tolerating it well, you can wait even longer. For that first year of life, they only need breast milk, but their main form of nutrition is breast milk or formula if you're using formula, or your combo feeding. But that's still their main source of nutrition. So we start solids, around that 6 month mark, but that doesn't mean that, you feed your baby less milk. They still need the same amount of milk. And the last question, do you use vitamin D drops? I do not. I do not. I am as holistic as I try to be as holistic as I can. I'm not so I'm not so much into supplements. I think that everything that my children need, they get through my breast milk. And I just really believe that. And I try my best to eat as good as I can, knowing that they get, the nutrients from me and from my body. And I don't think they need outside stuff. Now, I do, once they start eating solids, obviously, I give them a different array of foods. Again, I am a chef. And so I make it my business to make sure that they're eating a whole bunch of different things, new things, healthy things as well. So I don't do the drops. I know it's recommended, though. I know doctors will say to start it at a certain age. And again, for me, because I don't use bottles, I wouldn't put it in a bottle. I think my doctor told me I could put it right, directly on my nipples, and I just wasn't a fan of that. We get outside, we eat as healthy as we can, and I think that's enough. I really truly believe that breastfeeding or breast milk is a superfood, and so I trust my body and my baby's body. All right, so I think that's it for tonight. This was a wonderful chat, you guys. I'm so happy you all stopped by. Thank you. I felt the same way. I never used them, but doctors always asking. So I just say yeah, but I really don't. That is so funny. Yeah, I used to at the beginning too. I used to be like, yeah, I'm using them. They would give me so many bottles of it. But as I've gotten older, as I've had more kids, I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna use that. So you don't even have to offer it to me anymore. But no, I don't use it, and as more, yeah, I don't use any supplements or anything like that. That whole first year, it's just me breastfeeding and them, getting to know different foods and food groups and things like that. Thank you for all the wonderful information. You're welcome, and thank y'all for stopping by. Let me know if you want to see some more lives. I'll try to do my best. Right now, like, I gotta go up there and feed her. She's been asleep a while. But I love talking about breastfeeding. So even if you have more questions, you could put them in the bottom of this video. Again, it should be uploaded as soon as I click off of here, so you can rewatch it if you would like. And yeah, check out my playlist. Check out my breastfeeding playlist, because I have a lot of videos about breastfeeding. But thank you for stopping by tonight and joining me and hanging out with me. I definitely appreciate it so much. I believe the Most High gave us all that we need to feed our babies. That's exactly what I believe. And that's why I said breastfeeding, we know it's important, but it's super important. Our bodies were made perfectly, and it's the perfect food for our babies. So on that note, I hope that you all have a great Friday. I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you in my next video soon. Bye.